Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to learn the ways of the Luminous Warrior, then do we have the Heart of the Shaman show for you. Today I'll be talking with best-selling author Dr. Alberto Villoldo, a trained psychologist and medical anthropologist who has studied the healing processes of the shaman and directs the Four Winds Center, is the founder of the Light Body School, directs the Center for Energy Medicine in Chile, and is the author of a brilliant, can't-put-down new book, The Heart of the Shaman. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about stories and practices of the Luminous Warrior and how to transform our lives. That, plus we'll talk about the power of hummingbirds, bullies and prayer, the wild man of the jungle, love and popcorn, being ground into cornbread, what on earth's the Blue Madhouse, a horse named Herschel, and what in the world kissing glaciers and a blue lagoon have to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Alberto. Are you ready to shine?
You got it, man. Totally. Absolutely.
Woohoo! So before we dive right into things, real briefly, because I know we're I won't call it short on time. We've got a good compressed portion of time today. How did you end up leaving your teaching job and heading for the Andes?
Well, I had a really cushy job. I thought I had it made. You know, I was one of the youngest faculty members to the University of California system, on track to become a professor, running my own brain research lab in the brain laboratory at the biology department. And then I realized that we were slicing and dicing the human brain and putting it under the microscope. And one day I realized I was looking out of the wrong end of the microscope. I had to go bigger and bigger instead of smaller and smaller. So I left my lab and I went to the Amazon and spent the next 25 years working with the shamans and learning their healing practices, how the mind can heal or it can kill. And we know how it can kill. We know that we can worry ourselves to death, and we can create incredible stress, but we don't know how much about how it can heal. And that's what I've dedicated my life to. And my new book is about the core teachings of the shamans, of how we can dream our world into being.
It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful book. When I say can't put down, you can't put it down. What is a luminous warrior?
Well, these are the core practices of the shamans. The luminous warrior is a man or a woman who's willing to speak her truth, who does not take the most convenient or easy path, but really is willing to stand up for what they believe in and speak it out, and has no enemies in this world or the next. So this comes from the encounters that the Inca had with the conquistadors. The conquistadors decimated their people, but the luminous warriors knew that at any other time in history, that Spaniard adversary could have been their best friend. They could be sitting around a fire and sharing stories. So they had no enemies in this world or the next. And this is the core practice. It's a practice of peace, no matter what you have to do at that moment. And sometimes speaking our truth requires a tremendous amount of courage. And the luminous warrior, just the last thought, is a practice that can take you to experience the journey beyond death. And that takes tremendous courage. And that's where the fearlessness of the warrior comes from, of the luminous warrior, the peaceful warrior, because they have journeyed beyond death and they are no longer haunted by death.
So as somebody who's had a couple NDEs, or what I call cosmic whacks over the head with a 2x4, what do you mean to journey beyond death?
Well, when you have a couple of near-death experiences like you have, it's because you didn't learn from the first one completely.
You are so correct, Alberto. You are so correct.
I have a friend that's been hit by lightning 5 times. So the task is to discover infinity, discover your infinite nature. We've all heard that we have an immortal soul. But that doesn't count. You've got to make the journey yourself and discover infinity. Discover that that's your true nature. And then you don't have to take anybody else's word for it. You've been there and you receive that wisdom and you bring it back as you have, and your life changes.
Absolutely.
You've got You've got a mission, you're dedicated to it, you're fearless because you know death is a doorway. But reading about it is only half of the equation.
It's something I call the open-hearted warrior, which means to drop all shields and to lean into life and to lean into death and to lean into the fear, to lean into, doesn't mean that you don't have those to me, but you lean into them anyway.
Absolutely. Because it is a path with a heart. You lead from your heart and you let your heart guide you.
Woohoo! So what is a sacred dream, or our sacred dream?
Well, the notion that the shamans have is that the world that we are living in, what we call reality, is really a dream. And you know, when you have a nighttime dream, you might be in the craziest situations, but it seems totally real and totally normal at that time. It's incredible. I was having dinner with my father in a dream. My father died 25 years ago. He was a young man, and we were in a ship, in a galleon in the Pacific, and it seemed totally normal that a whale came up out of the surface and looked at us. Totally natural. The shamans say that the waking dream that we're living in, what we call our waking reality, is also a dream. And if you can wake up within it, then you can guide it and steer it. Then you can dream your world into being, and you can wake up from a nightmare that you might be caught in. The nightmare relationship, or the nightmare job, or the nightmare diagnosis, and you understand that you can change that dream, that you can dream health, that you can dream love, that you can dream creativity. But the shamans are very practical. It's just talking about it is not enough. They say that information is different from knowledge. Information is knowing that water is H2O, and knowledge is being able to make it rain. So you've got to be able to make it rain.
Let's talk about, in a minute, I want to talk about making it rain. Before I do that, a little bit more background. What is primordial light?
So the source understanding of the shamans, and this is derived from personal exploration. I belong to a club in New York that's called the Explorers Club of New York. And it's an amazing club. I'm the first member to be elected as a fellow because of explorations in consciousness. But I was sitting in a bar, and there's this old guy, and I asked him, what have you done? He says, I've been to Antarctica 37 times. And the guy next to him, I asked him, where have you been? He says, I've been to the moon twice. So these are the explorers of our world. They asked me, where have you been? And I said, I've been within. And they go, wow, what did you find? So this is the task of the shaman, is to explore that inner territory courageously and to find the wisdom that is hidden there. And then to manifest that wisdom in your life and in the planet in a way that's creative and fun and serves humanity and all creatures. But the shamans are very practical. They want to know, how do you do it? Don't just tell me about it.
And that's actually the big question for today. So I want to talk about first how we realize we're under the spell of a daydream, and then how we become, I'm going to call it, to use the vernacular of the explorers, how do we become an intronaut?
Yep, that's it. Well, when you become an intronaut, the first thing you find is darkness. You close your eyes and it's dark. And the darkness is scary. And there was a time when the world was only lit by fire. And when you light a fire in the jungle, I've been around many fires, you know that it kind of keeps you safe from the dark. But once you go into the dark, you find that hidden in the dark is the primordial light of creation, that everything is light, including you. And this is what the shamans understood, that when you put a log in the fire, that what you're doing is you're releasing the bands of sunlight that have wrapped themselves around the trunk of a tree as the earth turns around the sun. You're setting that sunlight free again. And that when we pass, we're also light. When we pass, it's like that log in the fire. Our light is set free once again. So you want to discover that before you pass. not the 10 minutes before you die. It's like a long time before you die. So you can bask in that primordial light. And that's the creative fabric from which everything emerges. Now you've got to learn to navigate that territory. And this is what the Tibetan shamans and the Tibetan Buddhists and the Native American shamans of the Americas, they were masters that most of us discover only after we die. Did you have any experiences of as you had your near-death experience?
My second one, but it wasn't the traditional, didn't go down a tunnel, didn't have anything of that sort. I stopped breathing and without words was given a choice of, do you want to stay? Because there was a choice of going into bliss or going into harrowing hell. And harrowing hell was going back into this world with a broken body and trying to figure out how in the world to make it until emergency crews could get to me. And my wife had come running back by my side. It was a hiking accident, and I was actually in freezing cold water, which is probably what saved my life, that and universe. Yeah. And I chose door B, the painful door. What happened was I had to manually start breathing again. And so I couldn't just tell myself to breathe. I had to physically each breath take because I couldn't breathe. But what I did to breathe was, to me, there was the brightest sunshine I had ever seen above me. And I'm not convinced that it wasn't just the brightest sunshine I've ever seen, but I had to breathe in light and just inhale all the light I could and then send out love. I was actually trying to pump out love to everybody around me as I'm doing this. And sorry, I get stuttery at this. Breathing in light and sending out love kept me going for an hour until the emergency crews got there, and they couldn't even pull a blood pressure on me. But I was giddy as a school child. I was in a place of, woohoo! They're completely freaked out, but focusing on light and sending out love kept me alive.
You know, it's amazing that you say that, because that is one of the meditations in my new book. That's an ancient shamanic practice from Tibet and from Machu Picchu, that you breathe in the light and you release the love. This is how you create the world in a beautiful way. Not just your own health, not just waiting for the emergency crews. This is how we create a field of peace and of manifestation around us. So I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know if I mentioned it in our last program. I was driving to my office with a really well-known Hay House author that you've had on your show, good friend. And I was telling him, there's never any parking spots in front of my office.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, danger.
And he says, don't worry, I'm going to manifest the parking spot. So he meditates for about 3 minutes, and we get to my office, and there are 3 parking spots. And he says, see, isn't that amazing how we can manifest? And I say to him, if you're so good at manifesting these, why don't you do it once for the rest of your life? Why do you have to do it every time you need a parking spot? He got pretty upset with me. So this is what happens when you work with the light. You don't have to fix the next situation. You breathe in the light, you breathe out the love, and the world organizes itself. So you have the parking spot, you have the beauty, you have the health, you have the abundance. You don't need to write a check to yourself for $1 million. You have the abundance you need because you don't micromanage it. So that's beautiful that you discovered that practice, or it was taught to you perhaps out of necessity. Out of this beautiful
it came in that moment. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I stay alive? And that was the practice that came to me, I guess, or I guess you could say downloaded or something. I couldn't even tell you.
Well, you did. And that's why in shamanic traditions, I had to go through this in the Amazon, where I went through a symbolic death ceremony. Mm-hmm. where I didn't have any broken bones. I could breathe normally, but I had to face my death. And the shamans choreographed it in such a way that I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. And so much was shown to me. You were given the spiritual first aid, but there's so much information and wisdom.
Is there a way to start tapping into this? You've taken a lot of 3-day journeys, so to speak, and journeys led by shaman. Is there a way that we can start taking these journeys ourselves?
Well, the journey is inevitable. You're going to have to take it yourself. Most of us postpone it until the very end of our lives, when we're making that final crossing. That's why we put so much effort into creating a personal immortality project. I always keep a half-finished book on my desk. In case God comes or death comes, I'm going to show him this book. Say, hey, I can't die right now. I still got to finish this book. So one of the dreams that I write about that we need to wake up from is the dream of death. And you need to make that experience consciously, to see that light, to work with that light, bring it back with you so that you can then practice fearlessness. Then you don't need to keep a half-finished book. You don't need to keep any I love yous or I forgive yous that have not been said yet. You can live life with impeccability and with courage. And then you're outrageous. You have a blank check, you have carte blanche to be totally outrageous in your life then. And then you don't have to keep working on your mommy and daddy issues in your 60s. Because come on, there's other stuff to do in this world.
Can you tell us who was Don Manuel Quispe and what is, speaking about fearlessness and death, kissing a glacier?
Kissing a glacier. Well, I started as a medical anthropologist, and I was in the Amazon studying the healers. How do they marshal the resources of the mind to get the body to heal very, very rapidly? And Don Manuel was the eldest of the shamans. And he said to me one time, well, the first thing that we need to heal with you, Alberto, is your ignorance. And I said, but wait a minute, I have a PhD. And he said exactly what I'm talking about. I had a lot of book wisdom, book knowledge, but very little spiritual wisdom. So one of my initiations that I had to go through was at very high altitude, at almost 15,000 feet, at the foot of a glacier in a holy mountain. And I was the only non-Indian. And see, I was received very well by these indigenous people. These were the last of the Inca. Nobody had had contact with them. They had been isolated for 500 years. They were the prophecy keepers, the watchers. They kept watching humanity after the conquest and how it unfolded. And I was one of the first anthropologists to meet them. And I was received as a great healer and given access to everybody. Not because I had any shamanic gifts, but because I brought some Western medication with me. And, babies that had distended bellies with parasites, we have really, really good meds for that. So they welcomed me. And then we were at the Holy Mountain, and the old man says to me, one of us has to go and kiss the glacier. And I said, look, I come from the Caribbean. I like warm beaches. I don't like glacial lagoons. And right below the surface, maybe 12 feet below the surface, you could see the blue ice. 12 feet below the surface of the small lagoon, there was the heart of the glacier. And he said to me, one of us has to go in, and it's usually the youngest, the newest member. I wasn't the youngest, but the newest. And I had, 50 eyes looking at me. So I took my clothing off and I dove into the lagoon and knocked the breath out of me total ice cold water. And the the speed of the dive takes me to the bottom, and I kiss the glacier, and I come back up, and they pull me out of the water, and they drive me out, and everybody's cheering me on. I asked him, because I had an out of body experience when that happened. I could see my body going in, but just like it knocked the breath out of me, it knocked the spirit out of me. And after I came back into my body and stopped shaking, I said to the old man, "How was it for you when you had to go kiss the lagoon?" And he says to me, "Nobody ever does that. That's really dangerous." So they had set me up, of course, as a test. And I passed. I guess I passed. And that's and what I loved, and I remember we were coming down the mountain. That night we saw all kinds of amazing lights in the sky. Lights shooting across the sky, lights shooting across our camp. And we're coming down the mountain, and we run across a group of French researchers, UFO researchers. They were looking for ETs. And they asked, through a translator, they asked the shamans, "Have you seen any lights in the sky that are kind of acting strangely?" And they go, "No." "Have you seen any lights that suddenly change direction?" "No." And I'm looking at them, I said, "We saw a dozen of those last night." So they deny everything, and the researchers leave, and I asked them, why did you not tell them the truth?" He says, "Well, we don't like those beings that come in buses," they said. "Well, buses?" He said, "Anything that's metallic and it's a vehicle, they call a bus, because they'd never seen buses before. The space buses, we don't like those. The ones that we like are the ones that step right through the fabric of tears in the fabric of space. It's like a light opens up. It's like a lens opens up in shimmering space, and they step through. These are the extra dimensionals," they said. "We like those. Those are the luminous ones, the luminous beings. They're made only of light, of that original light. The others have high technology. We're a little bit leery of them." So that's part of the world of the shaman. It's the understanding that the only thing there is in the universe is light and life. And light is equal to life when you get to a high enough level.
I like that. We've Jessica and I we hike all the time, and we've run into bear. I've run into mountain lion on my own, and it always the same thing happens when we see hikers afterwards. She goes, "Should we tell people about them?" And I'm like, "No, because
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried for the people. The people will be fine. I don't want. I'm very protective of the animal that we just had a sacred moment with."
Totally. And they know you, and they've come to greet you in some way. So.
Exactly. How do we start stepping into the light?
Well, you cannot avoid the light. So the light is unavoidable. It is who we are. It's what our nature is. So in the heart of the shaman, what I thought this would be my last book, and it might be, but I wanted to present the key practices of this ancient feminine wisdom. This is from the time of the goddess traditions that was so banished by the conquistador, by the church, by the masculine teachings. I wanted to present their practices for becoming a dreamer. Mm-hmm. So, because for the shaman, you're either a dreamer or you're being dreamt. You're being dreamt by your genetics, maybe, or by your culture, or by your karma, or your family of origin. But you can become a dreamer. And as you become a dreamer, you understand that the fabric of all of creation is that primordial light. Mm-hmm. And your work is to work the light and to use that to create beauty and form in our world. It's the complete creation.
Woohoo! Let's talk about transforming a few of these dreams. Basically waking from this bad dream, or becoming a dreamer instead of becoming a sleepwalker. How do we transform the dream of security?
Well, the first thing we need to understand is we got to transform 3 dreams in order to become a dreamer, to dream the world into being. And these are three nightmares, collective nightmares. It's the nightmare of love, of bad love, the nightmare of death, and the nightmare of safety. So the one of safety is we find, we want to live in a world that's safe. And if you scare people enough, they're willing to give up their freedom, their homes, their communities, their thinking, their beliefs to someone who promises them safety from the bad guys, whether the bad guys be the neighbors or whoever it is. But the only place you can find safety is within you. One time I asked the old shamans, when they were doing a reading of the prophecy of the time to come for the entire earth, I asked them, where will it be safe? And they said, nowhere. Where can I take my family? He said, nowhere. Nowhere will be safe, but you can become a safe person. And if you're a safe person, you will create safety around you.
Wow.
Not in the gated community, not in the, not through the multiple insurance policies. You can become a safe person. And there's a story about a couple with 3 children right before the outbreak of World War II in London. They saw that Hitler was gaining a lot of power, momentum, and Europe was headed to war. And they got a world map and they looked at where they could take their family that they would be safe. And they found this little island in the South Pacific that nothing ever happened there in the last 1,000 years, called Guadalcanal, where the fiercest battles in World War II ended up happening. So these are times of extreme danger that we're living in. And, you cannot keep your money somewhere where it's safe. One of the most dangerous places for our children are high schools. It's crazy. We live supposedly in the safest country in the world. It's not. So we have to find safety within. We have to wake up from that nightmare that someone or something can make us safe other than ourselves.
Thank you. I want to ask about waking from the other 2 dreams, but maybe you can tell us about that. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Please forgive me. The Leica, and what are they seeing into the future?
Well, the Leica is, Leica is also the name of a camera. I don't know if you're a camera buff.
I actually own a Leica, come to think of it, Leica.
Yeah. And I used to own an old Leica before the SLRs. And I take it with me to the mountains. And they look at the camera and they go, "Oh, you have a shaman's camera. Ooh. Can you take photographs of the invisible world with that?" So they had never seen that brand. But the Leica are the high shamans. They are the wisdom keepers and the prophets. They're not the healers. They don't mend broken bones. In fact, if you get hurt, you don't want to go see a Leica, because the first thing she'll ask you is, "Well, what's the lesson that you need to learn from this?" And you're going, but I'm bleeding. What do you need to learn? Come on, help me. So you want to go to one of the healers. But a Leica is a wisdom keeper and a dreamer. So they are in charge of dreaming the world newly for their people and for all people. You have them in Australia, you have them in sub-Saharan Africa, you have them in the Americas, in the Hopi lands, in the Mayans, and the Incas. The dreamers are in charge. They're the earth keepers. They're the custodians of our planet. And now the dream is going bad for everybody. It's not just the invasion by the Europeans in the Americas. It's going bad for everybody, with climate change and with all of the things that we're exposed to today. So we need people that are willing to take on a new dream. And so what I do today is to train modern shamans, modern Leicas, that can help their clients or dream health into being, dream a life of that's sustainable and that's peaceful and that's beautiful, because this is the art. So that's who the Leica are, and they have a legend. They have a legend that before we were born, that all of us were gathered in a great green field, and a very big angel came out, and this angel said, "You know, this is going to be a very challenging time on the earth, very, very difficult. We're going to have climate change and famine and warfare and rap music, and we need healers."
You had to throw that in. I love it.
Yeah. So who wants to come? And we all volunteered. We wanted to come and be part of this great change. And that's who the Leica are. And they're you and I, because we've had many lifetimes meditating in a stone temple above the snow line, or sitting around a fire with a buffalo behind us. We've not been born white Europeans nonstop for the last. We've sat together around sacred temples, all of us listening, and we've come here to do the work of creating beauty. But to do that, we need to wake up from these three dreams that we confuse for reality. It's like the nighttime dream can be so absurd, but it's totally real inside the dream. And then you're telling it the next morning to someone, and you're going, "Wow."
So let's talk about the other two dreams and waking from the dream of love, or as you say, bad love.
The love is beautiful. Love is the fabric of the light, of that light of tea that I write about in the book. The primordial light is its quality is love. But the nightmare of love is when we try to find love in another person or through another person. And that is so beautiful. You recognize each other, you fall in love, and then 2 years later you're going, "Oh my God." And we were having dinner with Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. And somebody asked Brian, "What about when you meet your soulmate, when you find someone you're convinced this is your soulmate?" He said, "Run away as fast as you can, because that's usually someone you killed in a former lifetime or hurt you. And now you're being brought together again to heal." So you want to find love within, you want to find love through, you want to be able to love the trees and the sky and the earth and that rain shower that got you wet unexpectedly and now you're cold. Love it. And then you're able to share love, offer love, and not have to find this through your partner and have that turn into a nightmare like it has for many of us.
And then, thank you. And then waking from the dream of death.
But just from the dream of love, what happens then is that a couple of years later, you wake up and you go, "Who is this person in my bed next to me? Who is this creature? How do I get them out of my bed?" And that's when the dream turns bad. And that's when you end up, if you stay together, becoming intimate enemies over time. And the dream of death. How do you wake up from that one? The the death is inescapable. It's the mortality rate is still 100%, but the journey beyond death was reserved for the very few in the past. It was reserved for the enlightened ones. It was reserved for the visionaries, for the awakened ones that were able to glimpse through the veil between the worlds. And today it's available to all of us. For religions, and religions appear around 6,000 years ago. For religions, we have an immortal soul that cannot be destroyed. For the shamans, you have the possibility of an immortal soul, but it's not a given. Different worldview. It says that the reason you're here, and one of my teachers said to me, he said, "Alberto, we're not here to grow corn only, we're here to grow gods." is that we're here to learn the lessons that we've come to learn, to be in service, to grow our luminous bodies. And they say that we have only 9 lives, more or less, add a couple here or there. If we're good to the animals, we get a couple more credits. But if you don't do it within these few lifetimes, then you lose your chance. Then you're mulched. So there's no time to waste. Then that story of I don't have enough time to meditate becomes utterly absurd, because that's the only thing you should have time for is your spiritual awakening and developing. And then, luckily you had a wake-up call. I've had it too, and we survived them. So now we're dedicated to awakening and to being in service.
What is Ayni, if I'm pronouncing that right? Ayni.
Ayni. Ayni is the basis of the philosophy of the shamans, and it means right relationship. So that you have to be in right relationship with your village, with your family, with your ancestors. If you're not honoring them, if I continue to blame my mother for not breastfeeding me long enough, and that's why I turned out the person I turned into, then I'm not in right relationship with my ancestors. I want to honor them and not hold them in the gutter responsible for everything that might be wrong with me. And you have to be in right relationship with your destiny. So this is the foundational principle. It's called Ayni, Ayni. It means reciprocity, giving and taking. Not only taking. They say the white man only comes to take and not to give, but to give and to take. This natural exchange that we have with each other and with nature. The Buddhists have a similar concept. They speak about right speech, right action, right thinking, right relationship. And it's foundational, because if you don't speak right, if you don't speak the truth, it will come back and bite you. Yeah. And if you have the opportunity to speak the truth, but you don't have the courage to do it, it'll come back and bite you even harder. So Ayni means living in a state of yes, of saying yes to spirit, and not, when I have enough money in my bank account, when my retirement plan is fully funded, or when I finish doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. Now it means living in a state of yes with spirit and with your own heart. Because your heart is spirit. And that's why it's the heart of the shaman.
Beautiful. On that note, since you were talking about give and take, what's a giveaway? And then maybe we'll talk real briefly about the 3 giveaways.
The giveaway is, there's a lot of wisdom in the spiritual teachings of all traditions. And it's not really fully yours until you're able to give it away. So you don't fully have it until you're able to share it with another. And the giveaway is your relationship to the cosmos. It's one of generosity. You cannot expect the cosmos to be generous with you and to provide you with abundance if you're not generous with the cosmos and with others and offer yourself abundantly. So that's the principle right there. Is that the more you give, the more is bestowed upon you. And that's a necessary practice for us today, where we don't have enough.
Oh, man. And the first giveaway of the 3 giveaways is really not easy. We're not talking about giving away it is a gift, but it's difficult. The gift of truth.
Yeah. I mean, the half-truths are so much more practical, but the full truth, it's transformational. It's totally transformational. And today we're being told only the relative truths, not the absolute truths, the convenient truths, and not the profound truths. And it's happening in the political front. You read the politics; they're all lies. We're being told untruths, but they're convenient. They say, no, this is not true. The truth is this. At the national level, at the level of relationships, of intimacy. So yeah, the practice of truth. Wow.
So you shall speak the truth, and it shall set you free.
And not only that, but if you practice the truth consistently, then eventually everything that you say becomes so.
Huge.
Becomes true. Yeah. Let me share a story with you, because
go for it.
I have an elderly mother and 94 years old, and we had a hurricane not too long ago in Miami, and she doesn't like hurricanes. She's scared of them, concerned about me. So I'm trying to get out of Miami on the first flight to New York because I have to give a talk. And the storm is howling, and it's 6 a.m, and I'm at the airport trying to get on the first airplane, and I'm in the American Airlines lounge, and she calls me up at 6:30, and she says, "Is there light? Is there light where you are?" And I look around, and the place is really brightly lit. So yeah, there's a lot of light here. She says, "Oh, I'm glad you haven't lost electricity. Is it windy?" And I'm listening. Yeah, it's howling outside, but I'm warm. There's light. She says, "Oh, I'm so glad you're safe. I was really worried about you." I wasn't going to tell her I was boarding a plane in 15 minutes to fly right into the storm. So that's a relative truth. Yes, there was light. I'm drinking a cup of coffee, and it's not the truth. So we have to be practitioners of deep truths. And then if you can practice that, whatever you speak becomes it manifest.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Woo. From there, second giveaway, beauty and the importance of seeing beauty everywhere and pointing out beauty everywhere.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked me on a show a few days ago, what's the most important teachings of these ancient feminine traditions? And we've honored a lot the goddesses. The goddesses are very popular, but the goddesses are part of the shamanic traditions that are interactive, that are not just descriptive, that are not worship oriented. You don't worship the goddess, you dance with her. So and I said to them, the most important practice is a practice of beauty, of creating beauty, of seeing beauty around you, even especially when everybody else sees only the hideous and the ugly. Where's the beauty? Find the beauty, grow the beauty, and bring beauty. And one of my favorite prayers is from the Navajo that says, "Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty all around me. I am surrounded in beauty. In beauty I walk in beauty." And your walking in beauty radiates beauty and transforms whatever's around you into beauty, into beautiful things. Yeah.
I love how you also mention that when you fall into beauty, time stops.
It does, yeah.
So let's talk the third giveaway real briefly. Love. In fact, I love this line here from well, actually, you've got two just amazing things. They go together. When you're able to love one who will never love you back, you discover your true power. And then you put a quote from Khalil Gibran. And God said, "Love your enemy. I obeyed him and loved myself."
Yeah. Yeah, what powerful teaching, huh? It's amazing how much time we spend struggling with ourselves and judging ourselves and not forgiving ourselves and not loving ourselves. So that's where we discover love, where we discover love first. And then the ability to love someone that will not love you back. And this is at that moment even. So my wife and I were having this big argument a couple of days ago. she is so obstinate. She is so hard-headed. She cannot see anything other than her point of view. And then I'm going, but that's exactly what I love about her. She is strong, obstinate, determined. This is what I love about her. Of course, she was not in a place to love me back at that point, but we got over it very quickly and we grew from it. So to love a child that is not able to love you back at that time, or a person that is not able to reciprocate, that's a great act of love.
Woohoo! What one homework, if I was to give you my hat, take off my coaching hat and put it on you, Alberto, and this has been brilliant. What one homework assignment would you give people today?
Well, I would invite them to do a breathing practice, very ancient breathing practice, coming from the Sumerian goddess traditions in the Middle East and in the Americas, which I like to guide us in. So it's a breathing meditation. So let's go ahead and take a deep breath and exhale. And another one. And exhale. And on the next inhale, I like you to repeat to yourself, I am. And on the exhale, my breath, silently. Inhale, I am. Exhale, my breath. I am. My breath. I am. My breath. I am. My breath. 3 minutes a day. It's a very powerful, transforming meditation, and one that you will be really useful when you take your last breath, because then you'll be able to follow it out into infinity and not thinking, how did that meditation go? I am my breath. And the word breath comes from the word spirit. So respiration, spirit is the foundation of the word breath. You inspire and you expire. When you expire, you have an expiration date. Your breath is lost. You've lost the breath. So I am my breath. Who am I? I'm not Dr. Alberto. That's just a title I have. I use it to make reservations in restaurants. You can't get a good table anymore, even with a doctor title. I'm a father. Yeah, I'm a father, but that's what I do. I do fathering, but I'm not only a father. I'm not only a spouse. I'm not only a man. I am my breath. This is who I fundamentally am. Everything else is what I do. And if I can identify with the spirit that enters me and that I release freely, I don't hold on to. And if you've watched people die, the way that we die in the West is we die by trying to withhold the breath. When you're scared, you go, oh. But if you're with someone, if you're helping someone to die who has died peacefully, you find that they'll go, they set their breath free. They set their spirit free. There's nothing to hold on to anymore. So the sooner we learn to practice, the freer that we become. I am my breath. And this is what the heart of the shaman is about. And this is the core practice of the Luminous Warrior.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. On that note, where can people go to find out more and to find your beautiful book, The Heart of the Shaman?
Well, it's actually in bookstores today, and you can order it from Amazon. And it's order it from Amazon if you would. It's #1 in Amazon in its genre right now, and it's just released tomorrow. So Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any of the booksellers, or you can come also to my website at the4winds.com, the4winds.com, or Google me, Alberto Shaman Talks Program, that people can do to activate their higher order neural networks that will detox your body. It's a free program that you can take to help your body detox, to experience the light more directly and powerfully.
Beautiful. And that's at thefourwinds.com?
Thefourwinds.com, yes.
Beautiful. And if you didn't catch thefourwinds.com, come on over to inspirenationshow.com. We'll get you over to thefourwinds.com. And I'm also going to appeal to everybody that when you order the book, when you go over to Amazon, leave a review. That'll help tremendously. And this, to me, is it's ancient, but it's also the most forward-thinking wisdom. I believe the way of the shaman and the light is where we all get to go and need to go. We need to become luminous warriors.
Absolutely. Speak the truth, create beauty in these times of darkness, and, complete creation.
Woohoo! All right. First, advice for parents for their kids today.
Tell them sacred stories. Don't read books to them. Tell them sacred stories.
Beautiful. And secondly, what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Being on your show. And waking up in the morning and taking a breath and going, I am my breath. I am happy.
What'd you learn from Machu Picchu last week?
The Machu Picchu is the holy city of the Inca, and I was reminded that we are light wrapped up into matter for a very short period of time, and to remember who I am. I am my breath.
Thank you so much, Alberto. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the heart of the shaman, and begin becoming your own luminous warrior today, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Blessings, brother.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!